Well, hello there. How is everyone? I hope you're all well. You amazing, beautiful, wonderful people. You're looking absolutely amazing. I'm going to get straight into the meat and potatoes. As we had Bryan Kohberger's friend, possibly a friend, I don't know. He's gone AWOL. I heard that they're trying to get hold of Cyrate to try and find him, which is, yes, again, another one of Bryan Kohberger's friends who comes out to talk about him and then vanishes off the face of the planet. But maybe we'll hear from him. I'll be interested to hear some people's thoughts because media are getting hold of Bryan Kohberger's friends and they've got thoughts apparently. So we're going to talk about those this afternoon. Let's have a look at it, shall we? Here we go. So, Bryan Kohberger's childhood friends reveal she's haunted by nightmares after killer's guilty plea. Took the guilty plea, though, before these friends, because there's more of them, and it would appear that before the guilty plea, none of them seemed to believe that Bryan Kohberger could have done it, but as soon as he pleaded guilty, it was like, well, he must have done it then. And we're going to be covering this specific issue in upcoming videos over the next few hours, whether it be later on today or tomorrow. So keep your eyes peeled, subscribe if you're not subscribed, smash like, all that jazz, all that good stuff. Because yes, again, this is a problematic situation in the US right now, and that is people pleading guilty to crimes that they potentially haven't committed. And is that something that we're seeing in the Bryan Kohberger situation? Who knows? But I'm just getting rid of this tiny little screen off there. So a childhood friend of Bryan Kohberger, this is that Casey Ants, by the way. She's been around since earlier on in the case. She's not a new face. And it says a childhood friend of Bryan Kohberger claims she's haunted in nightmares after discovering he brutally murdered 4 University of Idaho students. Casey Ants, 32, said she used to play with Bryan Kohberger when they were children in the Poconos in Pennsylvania and admitted that she initially didn't believe he was the true killer. She said she spiraled when Kohberger admitted in a surprise guilty plea this week that he carried out the murders of Kaylee Gonsalves, Madison Mogan, Xana Knodel, and Ethan Chapin in their off-campus home in November 2022. She goes on to say here, as she looked back on their childhood together to the Idaho Statesman, Ants questioned, did he ever have thoughts like that before? Did he ever think that he wanted to kill me or my friends? Were we spared because we were friends with him? I'm disgusted that he could actually do something so heinous, she continued. Aunt said while she was stunned by the plea deal, she felt that taking the deal was better for everyone because he's locked up for life. Let the inside deal with him. I understand why the families are so upset. They were starved of justice. And I would 100% be too, she added. Aunt's brother, who also recalled spending time with the future killer while they were children, added to the Statesman that he was particularly thinking about Kohberger's parents. This is something that we continuously hear about Bryan Kohberger's parents. They were actually nice people. In fact, nobody who knew Bryan Kohberger from a friend perspective have got anything bad to say about him. There isn't really anything weird that has been said about him. It says, I'm deeply sorry that Bryan's parents have to live with this as well, he said. I've always thought they were kind people and they didn't deserve this. And for Bryan, God have mercy on his soul. Another former friend, Jack Bayless, 31, said he was also only convinced of Bryan Kohberger's innocence after his guilty plea. Because if he was innocent, he would be fighting tooth and nail to clear his name. I like this, the Freudian slip. Did you like that? Another former friend, Jack Bayless, 31, said he was only convinced of Kohberger's innocence after his guilty plea. Yeah, you're not alone, son. You're not alone. We obviously know what they meant by that, but I find it quite interesting that whoever wrote this, it's a written Freudian slip, isn't it? Convinced of Kohberger's innocence after his guilty plea, because that makes full sense. Why would anybody, for the life of them, plead guilty when you're up against a case that is weak as weak as piss. Weak as piss. And it doesn't make sense. And in a video earlier on, or later on today, sorry, I'm going to be talking about Ann Taylor. I do reckon Ann Taylor fucked him. I genuinely, and I don't mean like that. I mean like, yeah, you know what I'm saying. Baylor said he was still in shock at the senseless slayings and theorized that Kohberger carried out the murders because he wanted to understand the criminal mind for his criminology PhD. Now that is definitely throwing yourself into your work, isn't it? I think he did it to see what it felt like, to experience it, he said. That's some crime, isn't it? It's not like just he could have killed a fucking cat or something, you know what I mean? But deep end. If he wanted to write a paper about what killers feel when they kill, to be accurate, you have to experience it yourself to truly understand it. Do you? Or could you just look up the likes of Ted Bundy and the various things that Bundy spoke about and other numerous serial killers from history and write about those and things that they've said? To get into the mind of a killer, you have to be a killer, would be my guess. There you go. There you go. It's got to lunatics. Donnie Yozwiak, a guidance counsellor at Kohberger School, echoed Aunt Siblin's thoughts as she looked back on her time with the killer. I hope that his family will survive this horrendous ordeal and be able to get on with their lives. Unlikely. I also hope that the victims' relatives gain much needed closure and heal after this tragedy. Not likely, because again, this situation hasn't come to a conclusion, has it? It's just come to an abrupt end that seems to be some sort of political stroke money saving stroke hide your ass exercise. It comes as Kohberger's plea deal sparked fury among some of the family members, apart from like the Chapins, who have done all right. Obviously, they've lost a child, so they ain't done all right in that sense. But the college have looked after him, and the college have done good by him. With the family of Katie Gonsalves condemning how his life behind bars will still mean he would still get to speak, form relationships, and engage with the world. Well, I think that him engaging with the world would be quite a good thing, because maybe he will actually talk and speak and enable us mere mortals to understand whether he is the right guy sitting behind bars. Will he actually, once all this the dust settles, actually have other things to say? Who knows? Because he will have the freedom to speak. Meanwhile, our loved ones have been silenced forever. That reality stings more deeply when it feels like the system is protecting his future more than honouring the victim's past. Gonsalves' teenage sister, Aubrey, 18, said, "This last-minute deal feels less like an act of justice and more like an afterthought. We're not asking for vengeance. We are asking for accountability. We are asking for dignity for our loved ones, and we are pleading for a justice system that truly lives up to its name." And there he is, the little rodent. Yeah, which I agree with that. Do you know what I mean? It is called the justice system, not the there are other names. Thompson robbed us of a day in court. No negotiations, no jury of our peers, not even the pretense of cooperation and fairness, he wrote in a blistering statement. At the hearing on Wednesday, where Kohberger pleaded guilty, Thompson broke down and grew emotional as he detailed the brutal slayings in 2022. Optics, mate. Optics. Thompson came under scrutiny after the deal with Kohberger was announced this week, with critics of his decision calling for him to step down after the Kohberger case is closed. The prosecutor said in remarks at Kohberger's plea deal hearing that if the case had gone to trial, he would have argued that Kohberger stalked the Idaho victim's home for months before the murders. What he actually said was a load of shite. Thompson said the state would have argued in court that Kohberger slipped in through the side door before killing Mogan and Gonsalves on the third floor. He said Kohberger then encountered Knodel as she came down the stairs to pick up a DoorDash order. He killed her with the same K-bar knife he used on her roommates. He then entered Knodel's bedroom and stabbed her boyfriend Chapin to death as he slept. Thompson said, even though they were both found in Knodle's room. So a bit of it, there was some, yeah, this Kohberger's vehicle, a white Honda Elantra, was also seen, definitely Kohberger's vehicle, at the home 1122 King Road before surveillance cameras caught it fleeing the scene shortly after the murders at a high rate of speed. Thompson said that after Kohberger murdered the 4 students, he then returned to the home at around 9 a.m. the next morning and lurked outside for around 10 minutes. He then returned to his home and took a selfie of himself in his bathroom, where he looked menacingly into the camera with his thumbs up. Well, we don't actually know how menacing that picture was because it's been doctored so many times. But yeah, so some of Bryan Kohberger's friends have spoken out. It seems that they didn't think Bryan could have done it until he pled guilty. And I think that this has had the effect that it was always going to have. People believe that when people plead guilty, it is it. Why would somebody plead guilty to a crime that they didn't commit? And we are going to be, like I said, in the upcoming hours, either later on today or tomorrow, covering that exact problem. And what does the Innocence Project actually have to say about this specific issue? Love you all, and I'll catch you all in the next one.